Nintendo has always been unpredictable. You can never tell if they're going to release a Wii U, a Nintendo Switch, or a Star Fox Zero, or a Tears of the Kingdom. How about a Virtual Boy, or a Ring Fit Adventure? How has this game sold over 15 million copies? Even though Nintendo have always been the kings of left field, I think there is a major shift in how their unpredictability has changed over the years. It used to be that you would go into a Nintendo Direct holding your breath. You just never knew what they were going to do. And I mean that in somewhat of a bad way. But nowadays, we are in the golden age of Nintendo. The Switch is their best-selling home console of all time, and is in shooting distance of becoming the highest-selling video game system ever. In fact, the Switch era has been more profitable for Nintendo than every other generation they have ever released combined. They have released banger after banger, and it really paid off for them. I no longer go into Nintendo presentations wondering what game will be delayed this time, or what bad idea was going to be marketed to me as the next big thing. They have genuinely flipped the script on their unpredictability, and I would like to talk today about why I think that is. First, I think it's a massive change in leadership. When former President Satoru Iwata unfortunately passed away in July of 2016, Tatsumi Kimishima took his place and led as well as he possibly could in such a tragic situation. Of course, preparations for the Nintendo Switch's launch were already well underway, and we have Iwata to thank for the incredible success that has been, but it was President Kimishima that came in and led the ship. There was a definite tone shift between Iwata and Kimishima. Iwata presented himself as a kind and almost silly man who wasn't afraid to do as many fun skits and presentations as possible. And on the flip side, Kimishima presented himself as a firm businessman who only showed up to the big stage when the Switch itself was being presented. Outside of that, he let all of the leaders of various departments below him show off what they do best. He focused solely on his role as president and appeared to really keep everyone else in line. 2017 was a sorely needed massive success for Nintendo, and as a result of a job well done, taking over for the great late Iwata, Kimishima stepped down from his role as president. Nintendo then named Shuntaro Furukawa as the new long-term president in April of 2018. Furukawa inherited a very promising situation with the Nintendo Switch, but absolutely nothing was guaranteed. Nintendo knew that very well from the peak of the Wii to the chasm of the Wii U. And the thing is, it can be very difficult to discern which president deserves credit for what had happened. It's very possible that in the short 2 years Kimishima was in office, that he did nothing of his own leadership and just carried on the plans from Iwata's presidency. However, that same logic cannot be applied to Furukawa's leadership. If we're arguing that Kimishima was following some 3 to 5 year plan Iwata put in place, then by now, a whole 8 years after his passing in 2024, Furukawa has certainly taken the reins of responsibility for what being president of Nintendo actually means. Which brings me to my next point, to why I think Nintendo's unpredictability has shifted. Nintendo simply does things differently than other video game companies, and that has been their biggest benefactor in this generation. While other companies like Microsoft are buying up and shutting down more talented studios than you can shake a stick at, and Sony is executing mass layoffs to hundreds of their developers, Nintendo have done things their own way, a much better way, the Nintendo way. They have been rapidly, yet quietly, hiring new internal staff over the years and are teaching them the Nintendo way. Nintendo has put an emphasis on hiring fresh, young talent and letting them work with some of the brightest minds in the industry to develop. They've even spent over $40 million on land for an entirely new building specifically for their game developers. Not only are Nintendo not axing off their new talent, but they are treating them like kings and are ensuring they have the best possible chance to succeed. Just take Animal Crossing New Horizons for example. That game was famously delayed to March of 2020, just so the developers would not have to crunch to finish the game. And how was Nintendo rewarded for this decision? The delay just so happened to put the most wholesome, cozy, comforting game out in the public at a time when the whole world was stressed out and locked down, leading to the game selling an insane 45.36 million copies, outselling the entire series of Animal Crossing games combined. This leads me to my last main point as to why Nintendo has shifted their unpredictability factor. It's the result of leadership and development freedom combined. The upper echelon of Nintendo aren't interfering with the developers' creativity. They aren't forcing them to make trashy live service games or chase industry trends just to make as much money as possible. They recognize that they are in it for the long haul and would rather give their developers a whopping 7 years to develop games like Tears of the Kingdom than spit out a buggy mess of a game. It feels like that shouldn't be some crazy revelation, but in the modern gaming landscape, Nintendo is the last company to really hold fast to core moral values. I would rather buy games from a company that charges me $60 for a remake than a company charging me $70 for an unplayable game. And speaking of $60 remakes, Nintendo have finally realized that they are sitting on a goldmine of amazing games from their company's history, and that the vast majority of Switch owners have not had the chance to play those yet. All of the Wii U ports and remakes like Metroid Prime, Super Mario RPG, and upcoming Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. Fans are absolutely eating these games up, and millions are experiencing them for the very first time. It is particularly important that in this transitionary year between the Switch and its announced successor, that Nintendo repeats the insanely packed schedule of amazing games they had for the Switch's first year. This means that they need to focus development efforts on making the biggest and best game for that console. But what about in the meantime? How are they going to keep current Switch fans happy right now? By remaking all of their old games for you to experience, of course. Finally, Nintendo have realized that this is one of their biggest opportunities, and Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door tells me two major things about Nintendo's mentality shift. Number one, they are absolutely willing to repackage old games to this massive audience of players who the vast majority of people haven't gotten the opportunity to play. And two, it is further proof of their leadership ideology being flipped on its head. You see, Paper Mario in particular has suffered from a very odd set of circumstances. For whatever reason, the director of the series, Kensuke Kanabe, said in an interview that there were very harsh restrictions on how creative and original they were allowed to be with the series. Since Paper Mario Sticker Star, it is no longer possible to modify Mario characters or to create original characters that touch on the Mario universe. That means that if we aren't using Mario characters for bosses, we need to create original characters with designs that don't involve the Mario universe at all, like we've done with Ollie and the stationary bosses. And on top of that horrible news, it appeared as though Mario and Zelda series creator Shigeru Miyamoto was the one behind it all. Aside from wanting us to change the atmosphere a lot, there were two main things that Miyamoto-san said from the start of the project. It's fine without a story, so do we even really need one? And as much as possible, complete it with only characters from the Super Mario world. Miyamoto is infamous for seemingly hating the idea of any story elements in Mario games. It's even said that producer of Super Mario Odyssey and host of many Nintendo Directs, Yoshiaki Koizumi, had to go behind Miyamoto's back to put in the storybook portion of Super Mario Galaxy. You know, the part of the game that everybody loved because it gave Rosalina a gut-wrenching backstory? Yeah. If Miyamoto had caught wind of that before the game released, he would have shut it down immediately, and he was very unhappy it made it into the final game. Miyamoto is also infamous for having the final say on if a game mechanic is going to be thrown out of the window simply because he doesn't understand its appeal. But because he is a legendary game creator, everyone listens to him. But now with the wildly successful Mario movie, its sequel, and the announcement of a live-action Zelda movie, Miyamoto seems to be entirely occupied with making those movies as great as they can possibly be. I'm sure he is still working to supervise some game development, but I can't help but wonder if we have been getting more great story-driven remakes because of his lack of involvement. And now, with The Thousand-Year Door, a cult classic Paper Mario game praised for its massive, captivating story and its altered pre-existing Mario characters, it shows a real change in direction for the company. Not to mention, Super Mario RPG got remade for the Switch, and it also had a bunch of wacky characters, and was a story-driven Mario game. Need more proof of Nintendo's willingness to change their mindset on this? Go Nintendo recently reported on survey questions that Nintendo has been asking fans of the series. One such question is, I like characters that look like other familiar characters, but also have a unique appearance or personality. The weird rules and restrictions the Paper Mario series had appears to be going out the window, and it feels like they are actually listening to us now. This shift is incredibly exciting and is the reason every Nintendo Direct has me on the edge of my seat. But in somewhat of a reality check, I'm keeping my expectations in check. It seems from an outsider's perspective that President Furukawa has changed the company for the better, and that the Switch's successor is being put in the perfect position to succeed. But we can't say for certain that's the case. In Nintendo's history, there have only been 2 home consoles that got direct sequels: the SNES after the NES, and the Wii U after the Wii. The SNES model is absolutely what Nintendo needs to replicate with the Switch's successor. Make a much more powerful console that makes all of your games look way better, and putting out tons of amazing games within that console's first year. However, we simply cannot just dismiss the failures of the Wii U and their lack of recognizing how bad of an idea a follow-up to the Wii was. But I've done that song and dance plenty on my channel already. I truly think that they have learned from their mistakes and are going to go the SNES route. I believe they are going to be just fine and are working to give people a real reason to buy their products, rather than just assuming everyone will show up to buy whatever gimmick they crap out. Through the leadership changes and apparent developer freedom, Nintendo are firmly positioned to have success moving into the next generation. Sure, it's incredibly unlikely for them to even sniff the success of the Switch, but I don't think 80 to 90 million consoles are out of the question. As long as they stay the course and stay on their toes, Nintendo will be just fine. Thank you all so much for watching to the very end. Please let me know all of your thoughts on Nintendo's shift in unpredictability down in the comments section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and check out all of my social media garbage in my channel's description. And hey, I just did a video on the history of Amiibo to commemorate its 10th anniversary, so go watch that by clicking on the screen. Thanks again for watching Ray's Nintendo Talk. I have been Ray, and I will see you all in the next video. Have a great day, y'all.